I came from Italian carpenters, like third generation carpenter, right?
Yep.
But my grandfather came here knowing no English, and he worked on the railroad, learned carpentry, learned English, read the paper every day his whole life front to back. My grandmother never learned a lick of English, never talked to her once, but he was a really capable guy. So so I grew up in an Italian carpentry family. My dad was a contractor, and I could tell you stories about that, but that was pretty colorful. And my normal, I found out later on, wasn't.
So was this in the
normal.
Chicago era?
Yeah, it was in Hillside. It was in Hillside, Illinois. It's around the Eisenhower corridor there. There used to be a mall there.
I was going to say one would surmise they would know people that were in the outfit.
My dad's era, it was more of the former lieutenants of Capone. Right, he was after Capone. So my dad fought in World War II. He was born in 1919. So he knew their lieutenants. My dad was Italian. Mafia guys or Alpha guys are Sicilian.
Correct.
So, and that's on the East Coast too. You can't become usually a made man if you're not Sicilian, because they want to know how to kill your whole fucking family all the way back.
Right.
The Roman era, you're all dead.
Right.
So when you're Italian, it's like, well,
it's not just you; it's everything that you love.
It's like to them, you're like Canadian. Like you're just too nice. You're not really one of us, right?
Yep.
That's what Cosa Nostra, I think, if it means it's like one of us or our thing, it means it's our thing, right?
Yep.
So, but he did know them, and he hung out. And my dad his nickname was Sparrow because he was a little guy, and he was very funny. My dad was very funny. He could have been a comedian, and he liked hanging out with those guys.
This is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
Good evening. Sam Momo Giancana, the Chicago crime syndicate chieftain recently named in a reported CIA mafia plot to assassinate Fidel Castro, has been shot to death. Federal, state, and local law enforcement authorities say the killing late last night at the 65-year-old Giancana's suburban Oak Park home looks like an underworld execution. Sharon Lovejoy reports.
The killer was face-to-face with Sam Giancana when he fired the first bullet. It hit him in the mouth. 2 more slugs went in under the chin, 3 others in the back of the neck. Whoever hit Sam had to be a close companion, said one Chicago police commander today. He had to be very, very close to get in for the kill.
I remember one time, my dad's in his Mark IV out in the park, out in the driveway of our house.
What is it about the Lincolns? I was telling
It's a Mark IV, beautiful Mark IV, beige Mark IV with the vents on the side, beautiful car. He's in there and he's upset, and I hardly ever see my dad upset. He's like crying. He's really upset. Wow. I goes, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" He goes, you see this watch here? Yeah, I said, yeah. He goes, my best friend gave me this watch. And I said, oh, really? He goes, yeah, he was killed today. I said, oh my God. He goes, my gold piquette that I wear sometimes? The guy who killed him gave me that watch. So I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. I better get my chores done.
Your friend killed your friend? I didn't know about what the mob was or anything. I was like, your friend killed your friend? What the hell does that mean? So later I learned what all that meant, right? There's like the Jackies and the Joeys and the No-Nos and all these guys, right? I read books about it. But at the time, it was just like you heard these weird nicknames and Romy.
Everybody had nicknames like Joey Bag of Donuts.
Giancana he had like 5. He had Momo and Sammy, and he had so many nicknames. But Sam Giancana was very colorful because he was unpopular with the mob because he'd like do whatever he wanted to do. It's kind of like the artist. The army called him a psychopath, a murderous psychopath, and they wanted nothing to do with him.
It's quite the label.
If the World War II army didn't even want to recruit him, you knew this guy was. Had interesting violent. They called him a violent, sociopathic, murderous something. They had this whole diagnosis for him, and he had a reputation of being really bad. But he liked my dad. One day, my dad made the mistake of asking him, "Sam, you think I could drive for you?" My dad, Sam Giancana, said to my dad, he goes, "This is like the 50s, right?" He said, "What are you, an asshole? Do you see my toolbox? We don't have toolboxes." Mm-hmm. Why don't you go and build like one of those nursing homes? That's the future, one of those old people homes. So I grew up, every house in my block was built by my dad. Like my whole neighborhood was built by my dad. Like everyone, and our backyard was like a multi-acre kind of lot. And behind our house was a 72-bed nursing home called Oak Ridge Convalescent Home. The street was Sarah Lane. My dad named the streets. I mean, the world I was born into is this world where my dad because of Sam Giancana, my dad became an entrepreneur, carpenter, right? And my mom was the administrator of the home. We called it the home. The home was the nursing home, not our house. Yeah. It was the home.
Wow.
And so, so that my normal, I tell people something like one thing you learn when you're older is, you learn that what you thought was normal it was only normal for you, and it might be actually kind of extraordinary. So I grew up in a pretty extraordinary environment. My dad would take he was a pack rat, so he did a lot of remodeling. And when you do remodeling, you get a lot of stuff from the job, old lumber, bricks. And my dad would pay guys to, clean up the stuff. So he had clean lumber, used lumber, bricks, more, all that kind of stuff. But garages full of nails and tools. And so he built in our backyard a little putting green with sand traps, a tennis court, a little goldfish pond with a waterfall and a wheel that went around. It was crazy. My dad just couldn't stop building a wishing well. The only thing that exists there now, because they tore the entire neighborhood down. They tore everything down.
Yeah.
To put in a retention pond for a new parking lot.
Oh,
And
wow.
my sister went and asked the city fathers, and we know them. They're they're paisans. And she said, "Could you save the wishing well? Could we keep?" So they kept the wishing well. So my dad's little wishing well is sitting there by the pond they're going to dig. So that's all that's left of that era.